as a result of the objection to the relief support government that was announced on Friday. Let's take you live now to the Minister.
Industry such as the taxi industry. On Friday, we announced that South African Taxi Finance will put a moratorium in place on vehicle repossessions and also extend their initial 1-month repayment holiday by a further 2 months. This is part of the broader interventions we have made in support of the industry, which include providing personal protective equipment, among others, to support the industry. While our plans to hold a national taxi indaba were disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, we remain committed to placing on the table a long-term taxi industry empowerment model for discussion with all stakeholders. We, like I said, that discussion is on the table. Empowerment model and a funding model that will formalize the taxi industry is on the table. Government agrees on subsidization of the taxi industry. And we know some of the challenges and the fears that could be there with something new that comes. Anything new and change is not normally easily embraced. Anything new means a lot to some. It is the fear of the unknown. But at the end of the day, elsewhere in the world, if you look at the developed world, you look at the developing world, and you compare countries that have undertaken a model of formalization, it has had good result economically for the country, but also good benefit for the industry. This model will outline the tangible economic support government intends to provide to the industry and the critical trade-offs that have to be made both by government and industry to ensure its successful implementation. We are convinced that there is no basis for any kind of shutdown, and we appeal to the leadership of the taxi industry and all members of the taxi industry to discourage any such actions and give space to ongoing discussions. Our engagements with the leadership of the taxi industry have been cordial and constructive, and we do not believe there is any basis for acrimony. Our collective effort and focus must be on directing resources towards the long-term sustainability of the industry. We reiterate our commitment to introducing subsidy as part of the long-term empowerment model of the taxi industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'm going to now read the questions that have come in. There's a question from Barry Bateman, who wants to know, as we've seen in the past where the taxi industry withdraws its services, it uses violence to ensure that any other service does not operate. The question is, what measures are in place to protect the public and other operators? This is the question that has come in thus far. Minister, I'm not sure if we can ask also the MEC to weigh in on this. I'll also ask the good advocate to my left whether or not there are any measures in place in terms of law enforcement, and then you can close with your final response. MEC Jacob Mababolo, I'm going to ask you to please come forward, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Minister and CEO, and ladies and gentlemen, happy Father's Day. Very briefly, as the province, we just want to convey to the people of our province that, and of course to the taxi industry and all transport, operators that we remain very much confident that the engagements and discussions that are taking place, led by Minister with the taxi industry, SANTACO and NTA, will definitely break new ground on this matter, both on the immediate matter of the relief that is being sought and, of course, the transformation of the taxi industry in the long term. So we have confidence that those ministers should move the taxi industry one step forward. And the cooperation of the taxi industry is critical. With respect to the action tomorrow, we just want to indicate there are two issues of concern, Minister. The first one being the impact on the commuters, including the fact that you could have some people probably losing their jobs if they are late at work. We have a high rate of unemployment. We're under COVID-19 conditions. Many industries are starting to take off and start their operations, and you can imagine if any worker is not there, with the high rate of employment that we have, that could pose a challenge to commuters also as workers. That issue in our province is deeply concerning because the action is only here, and we wish we could understand, Minister, why our province, perhaps that we'll find to know at some point. We understand we are the economic hub of the country, but we're deeply, deeply worried about commuters and also to workers. The second issue is on the matter that was raised. We believe law enforcement should be able to enforce the laws of this country and make sure that there are no acts of violence. We are concerned that SANTACO is going on a shutdown, and NTA, or the Gauteng National Taxi Alliance, has said they will be operating tomorrow. We hope this does not set back that unity in the taxi industry that we have been working so hard on and to build. Because what could happen on the ground, we do not know what could happen, but the culture and the history in the taxi industry is that under these conditions, there's normally difficulties. So we just hope that law enforcement will be able to prevail over anything that could harbor or, seek to undermine the laws of the country. But we hope the unity that we have worked so hard for in the province will not suffer tomorrow in between the main taxi associations, or the only two taxi structures that we have in the province, when members, others try to work and others try to operate. So to that extent, Minister, we have confidence in law enforcement that they will be able to protect the laws of this country and make sure that there's stability, there's peace, there's order, and also protect commuters and other modes of transport that could also be targeted. So to that extent, we're sure that the law will take its course and we can leave this matter, Minister, as a province. Thanks a lot.
Advocate, to cover it.
All right. Akonda azayithetha. Simkhavarishi. Thank you very much, Barry Bateman. Obviously, where the law is being undermined, the rule of law and the rule of law and the authority of the state must be exerted. Anyone has got the right to protest, to raise their views and all of that within the prescripts of the law, and chant their disagreement in whatever manner that they can, but they must not infringe on the right of others who want to get to work and want to operate. So That is why this shutdown is counterproductive, and it's not good for SANTACO, it's not good for the taxi industry, it's not good for all of us, because the demand on the table that is being murmured is around the announcement of the 1.135 billion rand for the taxi industry, that it is too little. We have had a long discussion on that matter. We have gone back and forth. We have gone back to the Treasury. We have gone back to government. We have looked and all of that, and it is not possible to go beyond that. So the strike or the shutdown is counterproductive. If we were to strike for a subsidy in the long term, which is the big discussion we're going to have in this country, that is reasonable, because you are now talking about the future, something that is personal, something that is permanent, that is going to be implemented for the rest of our lives. If you protest about something that is coming, that is permanent, that is going to affect the industry for the rest of our lives, it is reasonable. Now, for something that is introduced because there is COVID-19, we shut down the industry that is ailing, and people who want to go to work. Remember, that person who's supposed to go to work is your brother, is your sister. But tomorrow, there's no mobility to get them to work. They might lose their jobs, and all of that is counterproductive. It's going to be counterproductive for our people who rely on the taxi industry to go to work. So we appeal to the industry that at this lateness of hour, let us not go that route. This is not the time to fight. It's time to build and work together. I know anyone can argue that the money is too little. If we were to calculate the compensation, if we were to calculate the loss, we will agree that the money is little. It will not cover the cost of what the taxi industry have lost during COVID-19. It will not. Even any intelligent, unintelligent mathematician or whoever, arithmetic and so on, it will never cover the loss of what the taxi industry. And I'm the one to admit as a minister that the taxi industry suffered hammer blows. And that is why, as the Minister of Transport, I went to government and then I convinced government that, yes, they are not formalized. If they are formalized and they are fine, they pay tax, we shouldn't be here, because they will be going like everybody who is paying tax, who's registered, and then going to claim their money from Treasury and SARS and whatever that is designated, that I am Fikile Mbalula owning 16 taxis, I want this money. We had to even get that to be allocated, because arguments get to be raised. Why do you take so much money from the taxpayers and the fiscus for people who don't contribute to the fiscus revenue boost in the country? Why do you spend billion rand on that? We argued that because it is a sunrise industry and that we've got a plan to formalize it within a very short space of time, those negotiations are going to be hard. I don't regard the debates and the discussion we've had with the industry about 20,000, not 20,000 as negotiations. It's just, awusibonelele Mbalula nje ukuthi awuzame kubi, you know, and that is how I regard it, and that is how I've approached it as such, and that is how government have responded on this matter. And under normal circumstances, you are entitled to go and claim the money. Like now, we've got more than 200 billion. I've read that BTEC report last week on Friday when we announced that the small enterprises are unable to claim the money or they've been rejected because of the conditionalities of tax. Now, these are people who are registered with the revenue and they've been rejected and they can't access the money. And then, obviously, going to say that, but I give you money, so what do we get? Formalization. Yes, we give you money and that is it. So, taxi industry did not agree with us on that. And then I promised them that I'll come back as agreed next week, Tuesday, after my discussions with Treasury on the conditionalities. But I've got to explain to South Africans that I have reached an agreement on the issue. I've been pronouncing on the relief, talking about it, and everybody has been saying, when are you disbursing and where is the money? I announced, here is the money. And I don't need anybody's permission to announce what we have agreed. I can't be second-guessed. Government will speak for itself. And I'm here speaking on behalf of government on transport matters. I don't need the Togology to speak on my behalf. I speak now and explain that there will be no extra money from government coffers that I can promise the taxi industry. There will be no money. I've spoken to Treasury, I've engaged. I've spoken to the taxi industry. They gave me a task to go back. I committed myself that let me go back and ask for more. And then I did. My team did a splendid job, fantastic job to look at extra money everywhere. And I've always understood that this is a sunrise industry. It has got challenges, big challenges. It is 26 years on now. 26 years on, we say it is a 40 billion industry turnover annually. Has that translated into the pockets of individuals, the commuters? Taxi industry is the most expensive industry, as much as it is a sunrise industry for our commuters. Very expensive, because there is no subsidy. Now, as government, I am going to implement that. At government level, even in terms of the policy of the country direction, we are agreed on subsidization. But we know that we are going to have big discussions on that matter. And I've opened the platform. And that is why when Barry, somebody was asking me earlier on, this Indaba, is it make me nice, cameras and all of that with the leadership of the industry? I said, this is the real stuff, where we are going to look at each other on the, and I've opened up the platform. I've briefed everybody. The taxi industry says, no, don't give money to e-hailing. I say, no, I've got to give everybody, even the meter taxis, I've got to give them. We must share the little that we've got. I give everybody. And then, of course, they say, but some of the people who drive these things are not South African. Now, the Constitutional Court have just ruled that we must give money even to people who are not South Africans as long as they've got status in this country. We must actually give them money. They say, but they are not regulated. The taxi industry says to me, e-hailing is not regulated, but they are not regulated too. But when it comes to e-hailing, they say I must not give them money because they are not regulated. They are not regulated. We are regulating them. And there is a bill before Parliament now that is regulating the e-hailing. And it is also going to speak fundamentally to the business, because this business came into South Africa and became disruptive. And then boo, and then it was not regulated. The same as automated cars that are coming. They are already there somewhere in the world. You see them on internet. There are cars that are automated and all of that. You no longer need a driver to be in a car and go to your destination. You just get in and press and go. Now, when it comes to South Africa, we must not be caught by surprise. My department is processing all of those issues so that we are a country that thinks ahead and is part and parcel of the 4IR in our economy going forward. So we don't need to fight. There are things we need to fight about. And those things that we're going to fight about very hard include subsidization in this country. Government gives subsidy. How are we foreseeing the formalization going forward? We need negotiations around that. There's going to be big negotiations. That's why I opened the platform on that. and then we're moving forward. So my appeal is that it is counterproductive. I've heard people who say that this money, you will never ever get money from government that will pay for the loss. Never. There is no such money that government has got, that it has staffed somewhere and all of that. So we can discuss, and we are discussing. And I'm the representatives. I believe that we are the best representatives of the industry because we understand where we are heading, and we understand within government we've got to negotiate hard for the industry. But I can't tell lies. If there's somebody who can tell lies and say that there is money in government and we can give more, 2 billion, 4 billion, there's no such. There's no such. It is just a pipe dream. There's no such. There is money in government to subsidize. It will mean, among others, where will the money to subsidize come from? I've got to kill certain things and redefine them and locate them within subsidy, within government. And there are many such models within government that we've got to agree that we will now redirect them and ensure that we fund the taxi industry. We have gone further. Even those who are not registered using receipts, we have said in this subsidy they will benefit. Bring your receipt to the fore, you will be accommodated by SARS, even though you don't have a permit. But I can't just give government money to whom? Zege, no. I need to give government money to people who are at least registered somehow into Inatis and Olas, and then check against that whether or not this person is entitled to this particular money, he's got a permit to run, and that is it. Of course, there are fears that come with that, but it will take us a long way. But if ever we've got to look into that, I'm given a mandate by the taxi industry to look into that. I'm going to look into that. Next week, Tuesday, I will report back. My last point is that I've got to look at 100%. The MECs I've just met now in a meeting, they say, Minister, 100% is a risk. Look into that from a health standards and all of that. I say, no, it is not a risk. We will agree on 100% informed by health practitioners. It's like our model with regard to aviation we're implementing now. It is informed by health practitioners. There are doctors who are advising us, and from the ministry, but also within our entities, about what can we do best to preserve lives. 2-hour flight to Cape Town, locked. And then what do you need to do? We got advice. We have implemented that. All our airlines are fitted with HEPA to ensure that we mitigate viruses that might affect people. But over and above, you've got to put on your mask all the time. And that must happen. But in the taxis, they say more than 30 whatever kilometers travel, it then become a risk inside the taxi. But taxi, you get 5 kilometers less than that, you are out. You are in Sandton. Then you go to your business. You leave Soweto, you come to Paraguanath, you get into another taxi, straight. So it is not a long distance. Put on your mask. Put on your mask all the time. So we're looking at that. We'll place those things before the command council, chaired by the president. And then the net joints, as we speak now, is meeting. We'll get our proposals. They will interrogate them. They will bring them next week. And NCC is not a rubber stamp. President and the team get the report from net joints. They look at the report, and then they decide, Mbalula, we don't agree with these measures for transport. We think this and that must happen. But from where I'm standing, I am clear that I want us to go to 100% and all of that, and then also open for interprovincial travel for the taxis, because it's been a long time that they've been. But we must allow them within the prescripts of our own protocols. After all, the flights are flying all over, and they're going to be flying all over. So why should we not allow taxis to go? We should allow them. We're opening up the economy. with the risks. The numbers are going up, and then that is it. And we still have got to evaluate what is the contribution of transport to the transmission of these numbers. And we've got to deal with that. It's a bigger challenge. It's not one size fits all. It's a challenge on daily basis that we're dealing with. So I conclude by asking my fellow South Africans and everyone in the industry, this is not the time for war. Let's continue to talk. And this is a matter we can pass through. There's no need for a shutdown. Absolutely no need. And tomorrow, let's get the taxis back on work, ferry our people to work. Maybe times for shutdown will be warranted in the future. When we debate hard issues, including subsidization, maybe we don't agree to agree. Maybe they will be warranted. But for now, this is counterproductive. Economy is falling apart. It is falling apart. I will be standing here like a Tarzan, you know, and saying whatever I want to say. But I can't even do that because I know the taxi industry is hard hit. It's hard hit, and their concerns are genuine, and that is why we have to step up and get money to come in. Even that money, ask me, is it enough? No. Big no. It's not enough. Never enough, because if you were to talk about calculation of loss and what government must give, it is billions of rands, absolutely billions. I'm not going to stand in front of South Africans and say, no, that money is enough, taxi people and all of that and so on. I can't say that. They've taken a sacrifice. We got into this fight and we're still fighting. People are dying. Our families are dying. We're still fighting. We need the taxi industry going forward. We need goodwill. And that goodwill must still carry us through. We need sacrifice. And I thank them personally in the meetings. I thank them all the time in public, taxi industry, that for coming to the party without any hassle was a game changer. Was a game changer to flatten the curve. You can't take that for granted. The trains are not running. And I've put my foot down. No train will go out unless I'm certain that is on track. This week, I'm going to show you how ready are we. Thugs are running amok. They cut the cables. They do everything. It's syndicates because they don't want trains to run. Syndicate. But trains will be back on track and will be better. And will be back on track to reinforce mass transport in the country. So, let's not go to war. It's not the time for war. It's time to work together. Yes, there are disagreements. I'm not going to come here and tell you that high taxi industry agreed with me. No, it's not true. I've said it on Friday. I repeat it now. They never agreed. They don't agree on all the things I've put before them. They've asked me on 100%. I've agreed with them on that, but I told them I've got to go to government to get them to agree on this. And the conditionalities also for government to agree on that is to look at the health standards. So that's where we are. Thank you very much. You want to sanitize me?
Sanitize and participate. Thank you. Oh, you've got your own.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Honourable Minister. I believe you've been clear and unequivocal, and we do appreciate your time. Much appreciated. In the absence of any more questions, ladies and gentlemen, let me just thank Minister Mbalula. Also thank the MEC Mamabolo, as well as the Advocate Msibi, for taking time out on this Father's Day to come and attend to a very important matter. We do appreciate your time, and we thank you. And thank you very much for tuning in this as we have.
All right, so, well, there you have it. That's the briefing by the Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula, reacting to the announcement that was made by the South African National Taxi Council, that SANTACO, that tomorrow on Monday there'll be a total shutdown. This, of course, is as a result of the objection to the relief support that was announced by the minister on Friday of about 1.135 billion rand. So you had the minister there basically saying that there is no basis for any kind kind of shutdown tomorrow, appealing to all the associations to discourage that shutdown, saying that there have been some constructive, cordial discussions and engagements taking place between government and the taxi industry itself. So the minister, they're saying that during his last meeting with SANTACO, he had indicated that he would go back to the Treasury to request more money, but he did go to the Treasury, and the answer is that there is no more money for the taxi industry. So this 1.135 billion rand is all that the Treasury can give to the taxi industry. So he's scheduled to meet with the industry again next week, Tuesday, but emphasizing that there will be no extra money to give to the taxi industry, but basically saying that he's looking into transforming the taxi industry in terms of making sure that they get that subsidy, making sure that there's that funding model. So we also had the Transport MEC in Gauteng, Jacob Mamabolo, saying that he's worried on the impact that this will have on commuters. Some people may go as far as losing their jobs, and but appealing to law enforcement agencies to enforce the laws to make sure that there's no acts of violence, because we understand that SANTACO will be embarking on this total shutdown, but NTA will still be in full operation. So the minister saying that he does agree that this 1.135 billion rand wouldn't be enough to cover for all the losses that the taxi industry has incurred, but that's the least that government could do, more so because the industry itself, it's not formalized. So we'll certainly have more for you, and I suppose we'll have more reaction on this.